Good morning and welcome to Moneycontrol. Well, the FOMC gave its verdict on interest rates yesterday. No surprise for the markets at all, a quarter-point rise, which is what the markets were expecting anyway. So no big reaction in the US markets or in the Indian markets. But of course, Jerome Powell continued to talk down the markets as usual. That was also on expected lines. But where do we go from here to talk about where global equities are headed? How do how the various asset classes are positioned? We have a very veteran investment guru from global markets, Jim Rogers. Jim, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Emil, I'm delighted to be here. I'm very delighted because the Indian stock market has certainly surprised me this year.
Oh, absolutely. Not only Indian markets, even other markets. But my first question to you is a continuation from the conversation we had last time, and that I remember was around the SVB crisis. And I distinctly remember you saying that, when problems like this come up, it never stops. It's just beginning of a problem. But it seems that the last two months have shown us unusual kind of calm in financial markets. What's your reading now?
Well, as you look around the world, most markets are very strong and have been very strong. Even Japan, after over 30 years, has started going up for a long time. So nearly every market except China is doing well now. And India, you've done a very good job, ML. It's amazing.
Sure. But how do you explain this? I mean, do you think what we were anticipating at the beginning of the year, which is, it's going to be a hard path for financial markets to navigate because so much tightness has happened over the last 1 year, but we seem to be doing fine. The financial markets seem to be taking to it quite well. Is this the new normal, or is this the calm before the storm?
Well, interest rates have been rising in some countries. You're right about that. But the numbers don't show that they have tightened significantly. They will and they can. I hope they do, because they've got to kill inflation. But even Japan, Japan has been going out over 30 years because the Japanese central bank has been buying ETFs and been buying stocks. Everywhere, stocks are going up, everywhere except China.
So that is my question. So would you continue? Have you changed your stance to being bullish now? Have you put the worst behind?
Well, I am not selling short, so I don't know if I'm right or not. I'm not selling or selling short. I'm watching with shock in some cases. I would expect it to continue for a while. I don't see anything to stop it yet. Nobody's tightening significantly yet. So until somebody starts really tightening in a big way, this can continue.
So in terms of effect on the economy itself, how far do you think we have traveled in terms of the impact of interest rates on the global economy and the US economy? The Federal Reserve Chairman obviously said that we'll have to wait some more, but he also made a very important statement that the Federal Reserve itself now does not see a recession coming. That's not their forecast anymore, which is what, up until last month, they were also, that was not the case. Has that changed?
Well, ML, central banks are usually wrong. Very few central bankers know what's going on. And I rarely listen to a central bank except when they're either tightening strongly or loosening slightly. So I don't listen to them. I would suspect that most economies will continue to do well because there's so much money printing. There's been, all over the world, there's been a lot of money printing. So until somebody starts really tightening in a strict way, I would suspect that markets and economies will continue to be okay, to my surprise and other people's surprise.
And how far do you think, do you expect more interest rate increases going into the rest of the year?
Well, the U.S. has said it's going to raise interest rates. I hope they do. They should, because inflation is certainly not under control yet anywhere. And so, yes, I would expect that they will raise interest rates some more. not just in the U.S., but other countries too.
And why do you say you hope they raise interest rates going ahead? Because much of the market wouldn't like that.
Well, central bankers are not supposed to pay attention to the market.
But they do, isn't it?
I know they do. I know they say they don't, but they certainly do. Most central bankers have not been very good historically. India had a very good central banker a few years ago. Unfortunately, he's gone. America's had one or two good central bankers in our history. Unfortunately, they're gone too. So, yes, central bankers are supposed to, as one of them put once, take away the punch bowl as the party gets really exciting. That's what they're supposed to do. But as you rightly point out, they rarely do it. They rarely listen.
The market seemed to be attributing a 20% chance, if you look at the futures market, a 20% chance to a future rate hike. Where would you peg that probability?
Oh, it's a very higher than that. I'm sure it's going to happen unless something dramatic happens. Now, I want to hasten to say that I would expect by next year that all of this will probably be coming to an end. But in 2023, I'm certainly not selling short, not yet.
But is that factored into the markets, or a reaction to that is yet to come?
Oh, the reaction is yet to come. No, people are very happy right now. Look at the Indian stock market. Look at all stock markets, except China. Nearly all stock markets are quite happy these days.
But if we, take this fact as the truth that markets are ahead of, the Federal Reserve or central bankers or economy or companies, managements, the markets seem to be telling a different story. Is this irrational?
Well, you should watch your program to find out. You know, you can tell us all what's going on. I'm trying to figure it out myself. As I say, I expect markets to continue to be strong. I'll use the U.S. one statistic. Usually in the third year of a four-year presidential terms, the markets are strong. And that's because the politicians are trying to get everybody happy for the election in the next year. So there are many reasons, including history, that the American stock market will continue strong this year. I am worried about next year.
Sure. And if you just look at different parts of the world, because you talked about Japan, where do you see opportunities? Rather, where do you see relative opportunities?
Well, Japan is certainly a relative opportunity. The Japanese stock market is still down over 25% from its all-time high, which is a bit of a stunning statement. You know, it's been over 30 years since the Japanese market made an all-time high. And that, in any stock market history, is significant. But now the Bank of Japan is printing a lot of money, buying ETFs, and so the Japanese stock market is going up. I would expect that to continue for a while. The Bank of Japan has much more money than I do.
Sure. And what's your prognosis for China? I mean, that's been a story that has been up and down. We expect a reopening-led growth, and then that doesn't happen. What's your take now?
Well, I own Chinese shares. I haven't sold any. I am looking. I haven't bought any recently. But, you know, they had a huge property bubble in China for many years. They were trying to calm it down, but it looks like something has calmed down the property bubble. And historically, no matter what the country, when you have a gigantic property bubble, it takes a long time to clear the effects. They're clearing the effects now, but as you rightly point out, the Chinese economy and market is not nearly as strong as others because they had this huge property bubble. They also had the virus. They had the virus worse than many other countries. So there's specific problems or specific reasons in China for stocks to be down. But I look at it as an opportunity. I haven't found anything, but I'm sure I will find investments in China again.
Yeah, so that's my question. I mean, do you see China as a relative opportunity? Because for a long time it has not performed, and today perhaps the Chinese stock markets are at the lowest end of the valuation spectrum.
Well, you know as well as I do that when the market is down, especially on from historic levels, it's usually an opportunity. I don't think China's going to go away and disappear. You'll have some bankruptcies, yes, but that leads to opportunities. That's one reason the markets are down, and it is one of the cheaper stock markets around these days. It's hard to find a stock market that hasn't boomed recently.
And what's your take on Indian equities? Because Indian equities post-pandemic has done quite well. This year, of course, we've done well. We've done about 8% this year, but you look at US markets, they sort of overshadow us. I mean, the US market, S&P, you look at the S&P or the NASDAQ, they've all done much better. So what's your take on Indian equities now?
Well, ML, you've done a great job. The stock market's near all-time highs, It's done better than most stock markets in the world and this year, and I guess that's because of you. Somebody has done a very good job. So, well, I don't own any Indian stock markets, but for the reasons I said, well, first of all, I'm not buying now because I don't like to buy it near all-time highs, but I did not expect the Indian market to be so strong this year.
So what concerns you about the Indian stock markets being at a high? Because if you just talk to, the other experts we speak to say that this is optically looking like a high, but we were pretty much at the same level or a notch lower even 1 year earlier. And thereafter, the earnings have caught up, and therefore markets are actually cheaper than what they were about a year and a half back.
Good, then you should buy if markets are cheaper. But I'm a simple person, and I see numbers at all-time highs, and I don't like to buy markets. I'm nothing against India. I just don't like to buy anything. I'm not buying America, which is near all-time highs. When markets are near all-time highs, I, anyway, like to sit and watch. And sometimes sell short. But I'm not selling anything short yet.
So you're fully on cash, and is that your advice to investors?
Well, I have a lot of cash, but everybody has to invest their own way. Who knows if I'm right? I've certainly made many mistakes in my life.
Okay. And if you take a slightly longer term view, let's say a 1 to 3 year view, again, where do you see opportunities from that time frame?
1 to 2 years, I would expect that in the next few months, markets will be strong enough so that I, anyway, will start selling short. Now, not many people sell short. Selling short is something you can do when you think things will go down. But I would expect my next opportunities will be selling short, probably American stock market.
And what will be the trigger points that you will look at, Jim? I mean, for you to initiate a short, are there any data points or any other, telltale signals that you will look for to initiate a short?
Well, when you see markets making highs and you see some stocks, not all stocks, but some stocks going up every day. In America, there are 8 or 10 stocks that go up every day. And that usually is a sign that things are coming to an end. And those will be the stocks that I hope I will sell short next year or whenever. I try to watch when there's wild hysteria, when everybody's bullish, when people think, it's different now. It's never different. Those are very dangerous words, but those are the things I will be watching.
Sure. And what would you define as, characteristics of such stocks? You, of course, said that, stocks that are on a continuous rise, which you see in US markets, which we also see in Indian markets. Anything else that you can explain about, the build-up that should eventually create very good profitable short positions?
Well, and, at the end of long bull markets, and we've had the longest bull market in American history, I'll use America because it's the largest, you're having the signs. A lot of new investors are coming in and they call their friends and they say, I've discovered this new thing called the stock market, and it's fun and it's easy and you can make money. You see lots of new investors coming in and getting very excited. By the way, this has happened in all bull markets towards the end. It's happening again. It's one of the signs that I notice, and that's why I say I am not buying in America now. I am waiting to sell short.
Sure. You mentioned new industries. So, any particular industries that you find are becoming exuberant, pockets in the markets that are becoming exuberant?
Well, watch the internet. You see all sorts of people going on the internet and talking about great investment stocks and how easy it is and how brilliant the companies are and how they will never go down. I mean, it's not the first time this has happened in bull markets in America or anywhere.
Sure. And Jim, tell me about your view on the dollar. I mean, it briefly went below the 100, the dollar index went below 100 mark. Where do you see it going in the short run, let's say about 1 to 3 months? And the longer term trajectory, let's say 1 year out, do you see it trending downwards again?
Well, I own a lot of US dollars. It's my largest currency position because when people get worried, they turn to the US dollar as a safe haven. It's not a safe haven, but people think it is. And ML, I don't see another currency right now. I'm trying to find another currency that can compete with the US dollar, but I don't see it right now. And it's a problem for me because I know the US dollar has been strong for a while, and I know I'm going to have to find something to compete with the dollar. If you know what it is, ML, please do not announce it on your program. Send me an email because I'm trying to find it.
Oh, I wish I knew it also, but I'm also trying to learn, and especially from people like you. But Jim, tell me, if you just look at the history over the last 20 years or so, every time global markets, every time we are in an expansionary phase, the dollar tends to do badly and declines, and when there is fear on the ground, the money moves to dollar. So if we were to assume that the worst is behind, which is what the stock markets are indicating, would you still make a case for a bullish dollar?
Well, that's one of the reasons I own the US dollar, is because I see that when people are worried, they go to the dollar. US dollar is a safe haven. Now, the US is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, ML. US dollar is not a safe haven, but people think it is, and that's why I own it. But it has been strong for a while, and that's why I know nothing goes up forever, especially something with basic problems, underlying problems. So I am looking for something to replace my dollar holdings. The moment I own a lot, and I expect to own a lot for a while, but I know I'm going to have to replace my US dollars sometime in the next few months.
Fair enough. And Jim, what is your view on oil? Because fundamentally, it looks like it should be settling down, but it is not.
Wait, what is that?
On crude, what's your outlook for crude?
Oh, well, I own some crude because I own some commodities. No, I would rather be long crude than short crude. The world still is running out of known reserves of crude. Yes, fracking came along and helped for a while, but we now know that fracking was a bit of a bubble. It's not going to last forever. So I own some crude. I don't expect it to go down a lot. It probably will go up, and I'd rather own it than not own it.
Sure. For the rest of the year, what would you be? I mean, what is the level that you think it will settle at? What could we be averaging for the rest of the year?
Watch your program. You know that. You know better than I do. I would expect that agricultural commodities will be one of the better places to invest. The Japanese stock market would be one of the better places to invest. Those are the best places I know to put new money in the rest of 2023.
Sorry, Jim, I was asking, at what price do you think the crude could, what price could it average for the rest of the year? Crude prices. Where could it average for the rest of the year?
65, 70, more or less where they are now. I don't expect a gigantic move up or down in crude for the rest of the year. If anything, slightly up, but not a big move.
Sure. Anything you own in the Indian stock markets right now, Jim?
Well, you've done a great job. Your market's at an all-time high. I don't want to buy any more. I don't usually buy any market at an all-time high.
No. Do you hold anything at all, or you're just sitting on cash, like you said?
Well, there are people who are good at momentum and momentum plays. And if you're good at a momentum play, maybe you could find Indian stocks. I am not good at that, ML, so I'll leave that to you and the momentum players.
Sure. And you talked about Japan earlier in the interview, Jim. My question to you is, there is this huge anti-China sentiment in terms of investors wanting out from China. A lot of pension funds looking at customized indices, which are global indices which are ex-China. Do you think we can go back? We can really exclude. We are at an inflection point where we could exclude China, and these indices could gain traction.
Well, yes, there are people who are very anti-China right now, some for political reasons, some for emotional reasons. That's why the Chinese market has been one of the worst in recent months, recent years. That's why I'm looking at China. I don't mind going against the crowd, and if I find something good in China, I will buy it. Or if I find something good in Japan, the best for me in Japan are ETFs, because that's what the central bank is buying. They're buying the index. So I try to look where the money is going or likely to go.
Sure. One last question. What's your view on gold?
On gold? Well, I own some gold. If I were buying something today, I would buy silver. Silver is down over 50% from its all-time high. Gold is near its all-time high. I own both, ML, but if I were buying something today, I would buy silver. I'm not selling my gold. I will buy more gold if it's down. I would expect the gold to be a good place to be, especially in the next 2 or 3 years, because inflation is still here, and we will eventually have problems in financial markets. And when we have problems, many people look for a safe haven. They think gold and silver are safe havens. So I will buy more gold, but not now.
But
I would prefer to buy silver if I were buying something now.
Sure. So why is silver really looking better than gold? Because of the industrial, the real use in the real world, the industrial uses? Is that the case that makes it better for silver?
Well, I mean, I learned silver from India. You're one of your country has been one of the great silver investors for decades, for centuries. Indian housewives have huge amounts of silver. And I learned about silver mainly from India. But silver is cheaper right now. Silver has uses, solar energy, for instance, many things. So I would prefer silver to gold. I'm not buying either right now, but if I would buy something today, it would be silver. And I will probably buy more silver soon.
So if you were to pick your top 3 investment picks globally today, what would they be, apart from cash?
Well, agriculture is very depressed, and silver. I mean, these are things that are depressed, where I can see in the next 2 or 3 years, there will be demand and reasons for those products, those investments to go higher.
And what kind of returns are we talking about?
What kind of what?
In what kind of investment return can we expect in silver?
For investment returns for silver? Well, the all-time high for silver is $50. Today, silver is $24. So you can I expect high returns. The Japanese stock market is down. It will probably go up to its old high again. Silver, too, will probably go up to its old high again in the foreseeable future, the next 2, 3, 4 years. So I can see nice returns in Japan and in silver going forward.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jim. It was a pleasure talking to you this morning.
ML, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.